with my dad recently. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another round of Arbitration Studios as we continue our journey across the whole damn thing of Mass Effect. I am JP Arbiter.
And I'm Captain Jack.
And we are going to be discussing the story of one of the greats, arguably the best character in the Mass Effect series writ large. It's Erdnot Rex, and it's Mordin Solus, MD, PhD, DDS. I think he has the trifecta.
DDM, I believe.
Oh, wow.
He's also a DO. Funny enough. Chiropractor.
Oh.
Because he has cracked some backs.
He has definitely cracked some backs.
Maybe.
Looks like you can break one rule on Omega. Anyway,
look. If you're Mordin Solus, you can break all the rules.
Analyze the samples. We're going to need a lab.
I think, honestly, if you ask yourself which character in the Mass Effect universe, all of it, is the most universally loved, I think Mordin Solus is certainly up at the top.
which is kind of amazing because, in Mass Effect 1, the Solarians were kind of portrayed as this, they're the other guys, sort of thing. You had the Turians, who were these par excellence warriors. You had the Asari, who were portrayed as noble, meaning we're rich, and that means we get to tell other people what to do.
Right.
Sort of thing. And then there's the Solarians, because we needed a third race and we wanted to make something that kind of resembled Roswell Grays.
Yeah, no, I'm not, I think that is a accurate kind of depiction of the situation.
We had the greatness in Kirrahe, which kind of indicated that the Solarians shouldn't be underestimated.
Hold the line. Love it.
But unless you went through the Codex, you really didn't learn anything about how Solarians, forget culture, how individual Solarians operated.
Yeah.
You just knew that they talked slightly faster than everyone else, and that's kind of a side effect of the fact that if we were Solarians, you'd be looking at
I'd be dead.
Well, in your final year, for sure.
Yeah.
Or
I'd be in old age.
Point is that we wouldn't have to worry about the long-term effects of anything.
No, absolutely.
And if all Solarians talk, so that higher metabolism and that higher and that shorter lifespan translates into no time to rest. We do everything fast, including talking. And then there's Mordin, who's on a whole other level.
I think Mordin is self-medicating. There's no evidence to support this, but I believe that Mordin is, because first off, Mordin is at the
He openly says he started the clinic on Omega because he was in the final decade of life.
Absolutely.
Which says that he was 40, approaching 50.
Right. And I feel like he may be medicating in order to operate at the highest levels for as long as possible, which I'm a firm believer in better living through chemistry. But I think he's on crank. I think he's on crank.
It's one of those things where also, Mordin is the, it's sort of the quiet part where Mordin Solus is the Solarian Union's Albert Einstein and Robert Oppenheimer and and Werner von Braun and basically all the German scientists rolled into one. He isn't just one of the greatest minds of the Solarian people in this lifetime for them, in this generation, and possibly for several generations. He is the greatest mind. And much like all those great minds, once his work was completed, society had no use for him, and so he was shucked off.
Yep.
It's brilliant. It's great that, unlike with Oppenheimer, who was railroaded through the Un-American Activities Committee, And unlike with Einstein, who was so disgusted at what his work became that he kind of self-exiled, instead instead he's clearly more of the von Braun camp of, I'm just going to walk away, but the door is still open to me, sort of situation.
Yeah, I think he knows that he's got there's a lot left to do, and he has to be high to do it all.
Getting back to that,
I am convinced that he is self-medicating, like I said. Now, he is the, I think he is the funnest to talk to. He has some of the funnest interactions of the game, but also some of the most emotional and feeling of the game.
Well, it's emotional and the most feeling because we have introduced this premise of he didn't create the genophage. That was literally hundreds of generations prior.
Yeah.
But he was responsible for the genophage's maintenance because evolution is a thing.
Yes.
And the Krogan are capable of evolving past it on a protracted timescale.
Absolutely.
So Mordin has this weight of responsibility of Solarians are oddly static in their thinking for being so short-lived. Sort of the actions of the past were self-justified and it does no good to question them, which I kind of get, but they're also so heavily invested in maintaining a status quo, which I don't get given how short their lives are.
Right. It's honestly, maintaining the status quo ultimately always falls back on fear. Fear that changing it will make things worse, fear that changing it will make you lose what it is you have now, fear of change. And I think that even if you are a short-lived, especially if you are a short-lived species, you don't want to do anything to make that short-livedness even shorter, which I think is kind of could be attributed to the logic there. I think that in the case of Mordin, he is a doer. He is somebody that, and he is not somebody, he doesn't come across in the writing as somebody that particularly cares about legacy.
Not personal legacy. He doesn't need his name on it.
Right, exactly. He wants something. He wants the mission to succeed. He wants to achieve. He wants that thing to get done, and it doesn't need to be, Mordin's cure or Mordin's thing. He just likes the feeling of, hey, that is, I did that, I completed that. And I think we can all kind of empathize with that.
He doesn't want his name on the gallery, he wants his initials in the corner.
Yeah.
But as the, I helped make this.
And he wants the gallery built. To begin with, I mean that's the to him the important part is that the gallery gets built.
Now here's the question, because he's first off, I appreciate the fact that he's completely upfront, because it's the whole, you're gonna find out eventually. Yeah, my father has this great line, and it's particularly pertinent right now with some health issues that he's been having, of tell the truth and see where that takes you. So, which first off, in a conversation that leads to controversial topics, that can put people off on their back foot.
I think with Mordin, especially for a secret operative who essentially was the who essentially was the science arm of the Solarian CIA. He is surprisingly talkative.
Speaking of which, I do love these things of to show that one, he is clearly tweaking, and two, he's not working on any one thing. All these other things that are that come up when he has nothing else to say are hilarious.
Oh yeah, no, he is truly, I think, the funniest character.
Anything else?
So anyway, but going back to let's take the opportunity to talk about the genophage for a second.
Absolutely.
He's up front and where he's like, yeah, I worked on it. People often call it a sterility plague. That's not true. It just affects hormone levels, and he uses a bunch of scientific mumbo jumbo to basically state that it will functionally make the Krogan sterile.
Yeah,
but is that is that fair, or is that a guns don't people kill people sort of thing?
In the case of the way I've always looked at it is that the peoples of the galaxy within the Mass Effect universe.
First off, they're really great at dissembling.
Indeed, the people of the galaxy in the Mass Effect universe they all reproduce at generally a sustainable rate. The Krogan don't fit into that because the Krogan were genetically altered. They were altered to be what they are in order to be a savior or a warrior species to fight the Arachni. So in having done so, the galaxy created its own
worst enemy.
And as far as the genophage go, I kind of saw it as a failed attempt to return them or to bring them to a sustainable level of reproduction, which if they were not such a we want to kill each other, like let's kill everybody and everything species, if they weren't such a violent species, they probably would be at a level of reproduction that was sustainable.
But because they were made into monsters,
Bingo.
and then what the galaxy wanted, we were talking about the status quo. The galaxy wanted to return to a status quo antebellum, which would have put the Krogan onto Chanka isolated. That was not something that, first off, on any socio-political level, no species would agree to that.
Yeah, once
you brought us up and now you want to put us back in the can? Fuck you.
Yeah, exactly. I think that there is a little bit of honestly, I don't think there's a little bit of, hey, Krogan are, they're violent and they're choosing to be violent. And I think that Rex coming in and trying to lead them to a different way, a better way, kind of shows that they know, or at least somebody knows, that they are kind of doing it. Like, yeah, the genophage is a problem, but the real problem is in the culture.
Mm-hmm.
The real problem is in...
Well, the fact is that the Krogan had their culture removed and a different one imposed upon them.
I think,
and then all the situations were, or all the variables were put into place to enforce that culture. Briefly here, we're kind of starting the Mordin's loyalty mission itself, and so we are going to be first off, I'm using Mordin's mission as the point to introduce your lover.
Yes, my boy Rex. We all love Rex. I think Rex is what is the closest thing to what Krogan
Get the
should
hell
be.
out of my way. This is how, by the way, a head of state needs to treat their bodyguards. Yes, bodyguards are there to protect their primary asset. But to a certain extent, I've always felt that the principal needs to be in charge and the bodyguards have to deal with it.
Yeah, well, the difference being, of course, that...
The principal in this case could could crush a tank.
Yeah, exactly. The principal in most of our cases
Our reps
would fall over to a stiff breeze. I mean, and that's not. I'm just saying this is just a reality as opposed to what we're looking at here.
Oof!
Oh,
and
yeah.
that's why you love Rex.
It is.
Shut the fuck up, Ubank.
Shut the fuck up. Sit the fuck down. Oh my head.
And of course we're looking at him like, you want some of this? I'll get you one later when we're talking about Grunt, okay?
Exactly.
I'm Agatha goddamn Fisty. I'm the greatest bitch of all time.
And bitches be fisting. So now the first time I played this, I honestly thought there has to be a way I can get Rex.
Nope.
And the answer was no. And to this day, I kind of feel like that might have been a missed opportunity. But at the same time, I'm like, if they were going to do it, I think that it would have been a choice between having Grunt or Rex. You can't have two. No one can handle that much.
But you can double team in the arena in 3.
Indeed.
And it's horrifying.
It is horrifying, and but it's also arousing.
So, for those who are listening to us and not paying attention to what was going on screen, short version. Like all great scientists, like all great minds, Mordin had a protege, and that protege has gone missing on Tuchanka because he had a case of the morals.
Oh my gosh. See, the case of the morals is causes more problems than herpes, really, in the world.
Look, you just put the cream on and you go about your day.
Exactly. But the morals, there's no cream for morals. There's no cream for getting in your feels about things. You just do. And in this case, we got to go find the guy because actually one of the problems with Mordin is he tends to lose his assistants.
He lost his assistant on Omega, and we had to go rescue his dumbass.
Exactly. That tends to be a habit that Mordin has. I think maybe because he's on so much speed, he doesn't remember where he puts them. He loses.
Come to find out, he's not on speed. He just has an overdeveloped gland that just naturally produces amphetamines.
It's glandular, Mom. But anyways,
it's like hyperthyroidism for Solarians.
Yeah. So, which he, look, we love Mordin as he is, so that's where it is. But we are going on an interesting mission right now, and the reason that this mission is going to be interesting after we get through all of the chit-chat with my boyfriend, the love of my life, after we get through all of that and we get to move on, it's an interesting mission because it actually has effect in the game going on. Your choices, it is one of the things that BioWare, before it was purchased by EA, was well known for, which was games like Knights of the Old Republic, where your choices affected the game.
So, to just cut to the chase on here, we will have a decision coming up where what we do will determine how happy, if any, of a happy ending the Krogan get at the end of this series.
Exactly.
The happiest ending involves, and there are 2 factors to this: whether or not Rex lives, and if you kill Rex, my God, you bastard!
What is wrong with you? Seriously, there is. If you kill Rex, I don't want to be your friend because you are not a stable person.
And then I'm not. And then the other thing is what you do at the very end of this mission.
Right.
The absolute last decision on this mission.
Exactly.
Those 2 things work. If those 2 things are done in a Paragon path, for want of a better way to put it, the Krogan get the best ending ever.
Right.
If one of those is in a negative direction, it can be a little rough, and if both are in a negative direction, you will have a very serious choice in Mass Effect 3 that will not be pleasant.
It's true. So what we have here, among other things, is one of the things I kind of, like, at first was a little taken aback with 2, but over the years have kind of grown to like about 2, which is the isolated levels. Which is the straightforward, nearly linear, and really linear nature of the levels.
We don't need to be cruising across half of Tuchanka to get here.
Right, and you don't need to, and there's not this maze of corridors or things where you got to search everywhere for all of the items, and there's not multiple ways to go. You might miss things. I have missed things, obviously. Everybody does. If you don't.
Well, you're brain damaged. You have an excuse.
That's true. That is absolutely true.
I forgot briefly there that this was Mass Effect 2 and not 3, so I couldn't do the reach over and then stab them thing.
Yeah. Again, I think to BioWare's credit, they do not rest, or at this point, they were not resting on their laurels, and every game they improved the mechanics, in my opinion. Now, there were certain, and you might complain about certain things that were left out, being able to update your companion's armor, which that seemed to like BioWare decided at one point that they weren't going to do that anymore, which is perfectly. It's what they decided to do. It's not something I complain about. It's not something I would rather be able to armor and arm my companions appropriately. However,
I mean, look, let's be honest about Mass Effect 1 and its armor system, was that it was more cosmetic than it was functional. You were deciding what color scheme and what kind of shoulder pads you wanted.
I mean, there was some math going on there. You did get some different bonuses and whatnot on the armor, because I think Mass Effect 1 was they were still kind of holdover from Baldur's Gate 1 and 2.
Well, they ran into the problem that a lot of people who traditionally do fantasy games do when they go over to sci-fi, and that is, how do you deal with the power of gun?
Yes, no, absolutely. And again, the choice they made is the choice they made, and I don't necessarily complain about it. It's just
even when you have space magic, the power of gun is really hard to overcome.
No, absolutely. The power of gun is
that's why in combat you take cover. That is why in combat, when the power of gun is in play, that it's about maneuver, not about standing there and taking the fight.
Absolutely. But along with that, and a lot of the other changes that they made, I have grown to appreciate the changes that they make over time, where they say, hey, we're going to make things a little more different to fit in with the story they're trying to tell.
So, speaking of different, this is a fantastic little bit right here, because oftentimes, because humanity, when we explore science fiction, is a baseline, and what makes humanity special when we don't exceed or exceed at anything in particular, but we're also not useless, completely useless. What makes us different? This is one of the best explanations in any science fiction IP I've ever heard, is that we're so varied, not just because of phenotyping, but literally the potential of any particular human is so... Yeah, our bell curve is so much broader than any other... than any other species in there. So it has nothing to do with, we're not the strongest species, but there are a lot more who can be strong. We're not the most powerful biotically, but we can have a lot of capable, but not omega level, to borrow from the X-Men term, biotics.
Right.
You know, we have a lot of idiots, but we got a lot more smart people than we have idiots.
Yeah, absolutely. And I've always kind of thought that humanity kind of occupied that very neutral race where their potential was their power. As opposed to, Solarians might think fast and might be very smart and very crafty and whatnot, and you have the different races.
With the offset of being physically weak.
Right. You have all the different races with all the different abilities and whatnot, whereas humans, it's all about potential.
Well, to bring things back to Roddenberry and his depiction of humanity was that, for him it was superficial. It was that the various ethnic groups of humanity did not coalesce either through violence or through political force, which some may say violence is an aspect of, but I digress, did not coalesce into a uniculture.
Yeah.
And so that by needing to have a diverse diverse panoply I'm not sure it's the right word, at home, meant that humanity was more willing abroad and more likely to try to enforce abroad the kind of diverse alliances that are needed to make a relatively stable galactic community. Star Wars just solved that by, most of the species that are in our galaxy are near human anyway, where it's kind of impossible to say which one is a, quote, true humanity. Yeah, the people like the Night Sisters, like, you can't really tell. The only thing you can do to tell them apart from humanity is that they're generally all gray-skinned. The mobster in the Han Solo movie, who kind of had this weird tiger striping thing going on, but was otherwise human. That sort of thing. The Chiss are another example. Thrawn species. So blue and red-eyed, but are otherwise human, and we just punked him.
Man, that Krogan's hot.
That is and this is a problem when I go too long into anthropology and whatnot. I am a man of many fascinations and few talents.
I am a man of many talents, and very few am I actually good at. I can do everything, I just can't do anything well. So here we have a lovely little combat sequence.
And it's a classic, you've got no choice but to fight uphill sort of situation.
Which and how you handle it is really indicative of the character class you're playing. I often handle it by hanging back and sniping, or hanging back and using the assault rifle. In the case of, you got to use your powers, you got to do as you will. And then once that fight's over, that is kind of that fight right there. There's a couple of other incidences, there's a couple of other spots here, but that's the main,
may contain useful data.
Battle. You've got a couple of other fights, and I think there's one, quote unquote,
it's one hard battle, and then the rest is take cover and manage what assets you have, whether it's thermal clips or cooldown or whatever.
Yeah, that's where I was going with that.
But that's because in this case, combat is actually not the main principle. It's there to string you along.
Exactly.
For points like this, I might add, Mordin discovers this is one of those cases that from Mordin, he always knew deep down that what I don't want to say that what was wrong, because again, the data at the time he was working indicated it was the right thing. It was the same instance for what is generally considered the reason that the atomic bombs were dropped. Everything pointed to this was the right decision, because the only other option was a mainland invasion, and holy crap, that would have resulted in even more lives lost on all sides.
Well, I think with Mordin, and in this point, I think that he still is, as I said, I think Mordin viewed it not as not as something trying to wipe out the Krogan, but something as trying to bring their reproduction rate to a sustainable level.
What the other side of it being, though, is that it would bring it to a sustainable level because the galaxy's politics wanted to go back to before the Ragnarok. They wanted to reestablish normal. They couldn't. They either didn't want to or could not, for political reasons, accept a new normal of the Krogan being in the galaxy.
Right.
Which is why it all boiled down to what it always boils down to, which is real estate and the fact that on a world that was kind of an Asari colony, that the Krogan had liberated, and their camps became cities, and that was a problem for the 14 Asari who were living there. And the Asari, because they have money and because they are the only species who can match the Krogan in terms of lifespan, kind of took exception to that. Oh no, the poor people are moving in,
right?
So it's the whole idea of when the goal is to go back to normal instead of to accept the new paradigm, and Mordin, as part of that that system that valued the normal,
right?
Even again, dozens of generations, possibly hundreds of generations later. Again, I haven't done the math on Solarian lifespans, but accepting that as your baseline, not looking into the at the core, was there a mistake made? And unlike with the atomic weapons, the only thing that people who object to the dropping of the atomic bombs have to cling to was that, yes, 100,000 civilians per bomb died all at once. And yes, that was horrifying, but what were the other options? And sue for peace. You had them on the ropes, but the thing is that we said, we said surrender, and they didn't.
And I think that
you can't, and eventually you can't. Suing for peace won't work.
And I'm sure that there are plenty of people who are smarter than me, because there are plenty of people that are smarter than me, who will write into the comments their differences, opinions on that, and what have you.
Well, I'm not saying what's right or wrong. I'm saying that saying what the math was.
Right. Just to bring it back to here, I think Mordin did what he believed right within the system that he was in.
Mordin, and with the variables that he was given.
Mordin, once he learns otherwise, once he learns better, he changes and he does better. And I think that that's an important distinction between people who simply blame the system that they are in for their actions.
And I think right here, this is the turning point. This is the, this is the, when you expect a living sapient person who is capable of higher thought, because not all are, even if they are sapient, you expect them to always think things through rationally. And so he's confronted with someone who did an irrational thing despite all of the opportunities that a purely rational thought process should have presented to him. You know, it's the it is that paradox again of, you know, when of peace at any price, instead of and you know, any price is the problem, because sometimes problems are existential. For the Krogan, the genophage is an existential problem, but for the rest of the galaxy, it's not.
And yeah, and it's so. And again, we're talking about, in a lot of ways, we're talking about systems and the failure of systems as opposed to the failure or choices of individuals. One individual did what he did within the system that he was in, and that system told him what he was doing was right. Told him what he was doing was good. This is Mordin.
And it's completely impersonal.
And it's completely impersonal. Once Mordin starts getting into things and he realizes, wait a minute, the system itself was wrong. Thus,
I wouldn't even say it was wrong. I would say that the it's the what's the expectation? What is the outcome? What's the calculation you're getting into?
Once he had new data, he changed his hypothesis and changed the. And here we have, honestly, one of my just favorite little side quests that I never failed to do, and I always love. And it is basically, you got to be a dude's hype man. You got to hype this guy up.
We got to be Prince Nana here.
Indeed. We have got to deliver this guy. We have got to cast tungsten quads on this guy so that he grows a pair.
I put in an order to the Krogan clans for a bunch of badasses and pillage-hungry murder machines. Instead, all I get is this cupcake clown with a side order of fuck nuggets.
Indeed.
You reek of poverty and barren abuse. You wake up every night crying a river so large you float away on a douche canoe.
Indeed.
Every breath you take is a stunning endorsement of abortion, which says something considering the Krogan can't afford abortions right now.
Exactly. Hey, no, this is what you got to do for this. This soldier has.
We need to be Paul Heyman.
Indeed, look. This soldier needs his quads lifted, or dropped. I'm not sure how the Krogan work in that way, but ultimately, this Krogan was told a lie. He was told a lie. And he believed that lie. And this is...
I think he's also high as fuck right now to keep him complacent. I also think he's high as fuck.
I do. And I think that Mordin needs to deliver him some of what Mordin's taking.
Can you think about how many horse tranquilizers it would take to put down a Krogan and just make him like this?
I cannot. But
By the way, it was mentioned earlier, we're in a hospital.
Indeed.
For Krogan. It's built like a nuclear bunker.
Yeah, because it's for Krogan.
Okay.
So in this, guys, in this interaction with this guy, we are encouraging him and lifting him up because Krogan are beautiful, and Krogan should never feel down on themselves.
All Krogan are beautiful.
All Krogan are beautiful. All Krogan bodies matter. Yeah, and he's going to go out and he's going to get with some ladies. He's going to go to the women's camp, and he is no longer going to spend his life as an incel. He is going to learn the right things to do, and then
it's not about saying magic words and suddenly women will sleep with you. It's about learning about them.
Exactly. It's about learning about what
their
they
hopes,
want,
their dreams, their desires,
and respecting them.
Unless that's their kink.
Hey, look, you know what? We do not kink shame, although every once in a while we do kink
kink shame.
Every once in a while we do kink why. Much like you asking me about my desire for Krogan loving.
Well, now that I understand it's the violence and you just need to get the crap kicked out of you.
Yeah, it is. So this is, of course, this could be... This fight right here is to me, there are a lot of fights like this in the game where you have bridges and you have, you're maneuvering around bridges, and it seems like but you really, you're taking on one guy at a time. You don't have 50 guys.
In the case of the Krogan, it's you're a bunch of guys with your pew-pews against tanks.
Yeah. But, tanks for the memories.
Occasionally Sir Anthony Hopkins will, in a bridge too far, will shout out, "Bring out the Piat!"
So anyways, here we have Varen. Like you said, they reek of Varen abuse.
See, that's who I feel for more than anything else. I actually think the Varen look kind of cool. They're described as being disgusting to most people, but it's like, these aren't rats, they're alligators.
They're puppies. But anyways,
well, that's what Jack will do with one anyway.
Exactly. So
they fed him way too much Element Zero, so now he's a biotic Varen. That's terrifying.
Well, I mean, there's a lot in this game that is. There are a lot of throwaway lines in this game and in the Mass Effect series in general that, if you think about for too long, just become absolutely terrifying.
It's sort of like the Pokemon universe, only not without the cute veneer.
Indeed, absolutely, I completely agree with you. And really in any fantasy sci-fi setting, if you think about it,
Mordin's dead. Mission's over.
Yes, except
why he went and charged a Krogan when he is not a Krogan or Thane is beyond me.
Exactly. But in my case, where I was trying to go with this is a lot of sci-fi and fantasy games. They tend to err on the side of illogic. Mm-hmm. In a lot of ways, in that if you think about them too much, things start getting terrifying. If you think about the Star Trek transporter, you start getting, wait a minute, what is going on? What are they doing? No. This is not. No. It becomes an existential dread, really, when you start thinking about the Star Trek transporter. As opposed to Stargate, where it's a wormhole. You're not. You are tunneling through time and space. You're not digitizing people.
Speaking of which, we are at the final stretch of this particular mission. So it's the whole thing of, where did you even think that I was captured? And that's the ultimate question about the ultimate thing about Mordin that kind of, I think, shatters his whole worldview right now is that everything, this whole mission was predicated on the assumption that his protege here was being held captive when he was the mastermind of this whole thing, and the Krogan he recruited were just grunts.
Exactly. I think that going into this, of course, I think Mordin is, like a lot of very, very smart people, narcissistic to a point, in that they can't really imagine anybody thinking other than they would think who isn't wrong.
That's certainly my problem.
They can't imagine the idea that somebody else may have a point that differs from them, and they're right. And they can't imagine that two people can be right and disagree. And yet both things can be true at the same time.
The Fallout TV show had a thing like that, where the line was something along the lines of everyone wanted to save the universe but couldn't agree on how.
Yeah.
So here's the we are going to run into what I call the Grey's Anatomy problem.
Yeah.
Of
what happens if the genophage is cured?
Characters all being dead inside?
No. Oh, you're thinking the TV show. I'm thinking about the book.
Okay.
The actual medical textbook, which did incorporate a lot of medical information, legitimate medical information that was gleaned from experiments done on living human beings by the Germans during the Holocaust. And so there was this really huge debate in the 80s and 90s about, because this information was gleaned from and everyone agrees on this part, flagrantly immoral source, should it be removed from these textbooks? Should we use information that was gained immorally to help, even though it's being used to save others' lives? Or if by using that information, are we complicit in the murders of those who were lost in its process? And first off, that's a bullshit. From my perspective, flat out, this is one of those moral quandaries that's not a moral quandary.
Yeah.
Because you can't be held responsible for something you had nothing to do with.
So here's always been my take about that, and you know, I've worked in medical almost my whole life, despite the wonderful 10 years of being a maintainer. So all of that information, okay, we take it out, right?
Mm-hmm.
We take it out.
Doesn't
It's still there.
Yeah,
like that knowledge is still there.
You can't
facts.
You
These
can't
are,
put the toothpaste back in the tube.
Yeah, and here we have Mordin kind of
absolutely losing it, because again, his worldview is completely crashing down.
This is how people react when they are shown the facts that their worldview may not in fact be. People cling to their worldviews and they react violently when those are questioned in a lot of cases. But anyways, when it comes to like the Grey's Anatomy thing, all of that information is this is the science thing. That information is still there. Like, you're not going to is that, you know, are those things real? Yes. Did we gain that knowledge in an immoral way? Yes. Were we the ones that did it? No. Would we do it? No. Do we condemn the people that did it? Yes. Do we have laws in place now to stop people from doing the same things? Yes. When you know better, you do better. And if, you know, to me, the ends, it's not a question of do the ends justify the means. It's a question of
we're here now, what are we doing?
Exactly. We're here now, what are we going to do with it?
So in the case of Mordin's Malon's genophage research, which had horrifying consequences, but it's on a much smaller scale, best to save it.
Yeah, no.
I mean, rainy day. Honestly, I'm one of those people where we should have pulled a hard drive from Saren's base back in the other thing. And the only reason why I say we never do is because it's on an isolated drive, and we couldn't, and we didn't either. We were in too much of a rush, or we were never in a part of the base where that hard drive was stored.
For me, when it comes to dealing with Saren and the Reapers, I'm always worried about any of their information being malicious code. That would be my...
Was their genophage cure, first off, was it actually a cure, or were they just Reaperizing them?
Yeah, exactly. So, but this here, right here, I never have a moral quandary about this.
Nope.
I know it's a renegade move to do, but I don't have my moral quandary would be whether or not to kill the guy. And
for me, it's one of those things where it's like, has Mordin killed? Yes. Is he responsible for a bunch of deaths? Yes. Has he ever killed in cold blood? Has he ever killed for his personal satisfaction? No.
And in my opinion, is killing the guy right now useful?
Yeah.
Does it make things better? No, it doesn't. It doesn't change anything. So, yeah.
I do love this whole part about it's a side effect of Solarians being short-lived, and so their metabolism and their processes run at a turbocharged speed. So it's just like, oh yeah, dealt with it, done.
Also,
wait, what? You gotta understand, I don't got time.
Also, he's on speed.
Also, he's on speed.
Also, he's on speed. He's on space speed. Is what he's on. But yeah, this particular mission had a lot of a lot of moral-ish questions about it, but I think if you think about it, like if you actually think logically and you think from a empathetic, logical standpoint, it's a they did the right thing at the time that they did it based on the information they had. Now we have more and better information. Now we do differently because we can do better.
Well, I don't think I would say that.
Wasted enough time already.
You know,
Lots to do. Talk later.
and yet we can also agree that the genophage was just a flat wrong thing to do, because that was based on greed and a political calculation that was essentially, we don't want the Krogan. It was space racism. Period.
No, I agree with you. I think that there is something to be said for everybody having a sustainable birth rate. I don't think the genophage was the way to go about it.
No, not in the slightest. So, now we're here and we're at a bunch of other stuff about just the last bits of Mordin, because he was given a lot of deference to create a fun, enjoyable character. This Malin was his protege. He has this nephew who's, I think is a teenager, but fundamentally that makes him like a kid in his 30s
Why wouldn't everyone give clues that there are secrets?
as far as everyone. We also learned a really fun thing about social cues, which actually is correct. You can't fake a yawn for how faking social cues and faking micro expressions to try and misdirect people doesn't work, because it is, one, it's so subconscious, and two, the level of muscular control is just not something you're consciously capable of.
Effectiveness limited.
And again, this is probably one of my I love this entire I love coming to Tachanka because it's just porn for me, but I love Mordin as everybody else does. I have no problem jumping on the Mordin love train, just as long as I get to jump on the Krogan love train. Delightful.
Is he a genius or a scientific prodigy?
No.
No, wait, I don't want to insult him. Yes, but not in the manner you think. Because again, we...
Remember, Solarian lives are short, mature rapidly by your standards. Don't live much.
Oh, don't live much past 40. Okay.
Yeah.
I thought it was don't live much past 50, but
Nope, it's 40, and I believe he's like 31 at this point. They're an amazingly short-lived species. Like oftentimes in sci-fi, humans are depicted as being short-lived, and having a shorter-lived species is an interesting story quirk.
Two shorter-lived species.
Oh yes, two.
Now
Yes,
here's
yes, yes.
probably the thing that made everyone
Good timing, in fact.
love
Made
Mordin.
breakthrough. Can share results while next samples grow.
This conversation takes place after we raid the collector's ship, and discover that the collectors are descended from Protheans, and weaponized.
Tell me what happened.
So, the whole idea of what happens when a species becomes artificial.
Right.
So part of me just wants to let Mordin do the talking here.
Well, I mean, Mordin's always got a lot to say, and he's always got wonderful things to say.
It's like a hamster on coffee.
He like I said, I think he's on space crack. Space speed, as it were. But I think that there is, out of all of the characters...
Right here, no art, no culture, closer to us than slaves, tools for the reapers.
Must be destroyed.
I think that
I didn't think you needed any more motivation than you
there's
already had to
a
stop
quote
collectors.
that is misattributed
Saw
to
necessity of attack on collectors after plague on Omega.
Winston Churchill
Their work,
about
to care about
art
two
being
armies,
why
one
we
loses,
do why we
one
fight.
work.
Art, you know,
Now,
the arts are why we live. You know, you can't shut down the arts because that's the whole point. Well, I think that it is what makes humans human, and it is what makes a species an actual species is having art, having music, having these things. A sentient species, mind you, because
A culture, not a species.
yeah,
I
a
think.
culture is well. No, I think being part of being sentient is art. Is making art, making amusement for your own enjoyment, for not for monetary reasons or survival reasons, but for and it is for survival reasons, really, but for the enrichment of your spirit, or whatever you want to call it, for the enrichment of your being. And I think that Mordin, who is as a character so real, down like everything is science and da 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 da. But he also sings Gilbert and Sullivan,
Which we are getting into.
which we're getting to, which I think is a beautiful thing.
Personal interest negligible. Saying a little.
Gilbert and Sullivan always had me do the pattern.
So it's more
Not about me. Cultural artistic expression reflects
the like
evolution, interest in
he says personal interest is negligible, but
interpretation.
I mean
Suspect you won't see any art.
you can't sing like this
Culturally
and say it's
dead.
negligible.
Tools for real.
And we will see in Mass Effect 3 that it's not negligible at all.
It's not.
He's well, shit. It's time.
It's time.
It's time.
It is.
Take it
time.
away, Mordin.
I'm sorry, I know that was important, but you perform Gilbert and Sullivan?
I am the very model of a scientist Solarian. I've studied species Turian, Asari, and Batarian. I'm quite good at genetics as a subset of biology because I am an expert, which I know as a tautology. My xenoscience studies range from urban to agrarian. I am the very model of a scientist Solarian.
Just a beautiful thing. I mean, not as beautiful
You
as
know
a
what?
Krogan, but
That
beautiful.
felt so good. I need to hear it again.
Yes.
So
I'm sorry, I know
once
that
more,
was
please.
important, but you perform Gilbert and Sullivan?
I am the very model of a scientist Solarian. I've studied species Turian, Asari, and Batarian. I'm quite good at genetics as a subset of biology because I am an expert, which I know as a tautology. My xenoscience studies range from urban to agrarian. I am the very model of a scientist Solarian.
Oh, it's that moment. Indeed. Oh, I got a little too here.
Thanks for sharing what you've learned, Mordin.
Proud to be here, Shepard. Thank you for including me.
Had to be you. Yeah, someone else would have gotten it wrong. Anyway, that's the story of Dr. Mordin Solus. Oh, wait, he also is a great dad, because he sits us down and gives us the talk.
Oh yes. Yes.
And every dad does that pose where they sit down and they lean on one of their knees.
It's true. It's true. It's true.
Are you yanking me around? Of course, because we are staying loyal to Liara
Indeed.
and are not romancing anyone, he thinks we're trying to get to bed him, which I'm not even sure how anatomically that would work.
Probably about as well as anatomically with Krogan, but I'm willing to try.
And so are we. Thanks, kids.
Deuces.
Thanks for sharing what you've learned, Mordin.
Proud to be here, Shepard. Thank you for including me.